welcome to Chef Richard's Kitchen. I'm Chef Richard Miller. Well, the holidays are coming and everybody gets asked to take side dishes or appetizers or something like that to either a Thanksgiving or a Christmas feast. And I'm certainly not immune from that. Seems like every Thanksgiving and Christmas they ask me to bring appetizers. Not that it doesn't flatter me. It certainly does. But it puts the pressure on a little bit. I'm thinking up something new, twice a year. So anyway, what I want to do today is I want to introduce you to an appetizer. It's not original by any stretch of the imagination. It actually originated in France, and it's escargot, which translated is snails. Now before you start retching and hang up on this or turn it off, they're actually very, very good. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you today how to make them two ways. Number one, we're going to make them in their shell. And number two, we're just going to go ahead and make them in our little dish here. And then they can take those out and put them on little crostinis or some kind of toast. So, let's get started. The first thing that we do is we want to make sure that we have something extremely flavorful to fill them with. And what I've always found is the best thing to fill them with is a mixture of butter, garlic, parsley, and just a little bit of salt and pepper. So let's go ahead and let's get going with this. I let this butter sit out for a while, and I did that because I want it to soften. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some parsley in here. And you're going to have to put quite a bit in here. It really doesn't alter the taste a whole lot, but it sure does alter the color and makes it look a lot better. I think I could actually add a little bit more. Okay, that looks about right. Now, the second part is the garlic. And I probably have, about 4 good cloves of garlic in here. I'm going to put probably 3. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to mix this. And then we're going to taste it. It's good, but still a little drab. So let's take, and I'm going to add some salt. And the reason is I'm using unsalted butter here. So you want to add some salt. Some pepper. And I want to add the rest of the garlic, because that's what makes escargot stand out, is the garlic that's in it. Much better. Much better. Alright, now that we have our butter mixture made, now it's time, let's go ahead and let's prepare our snails. And what I want to do is I want to take a little bit of this butter mixture, I want to put it in the shell, and these shells, by the way, come separately. I want to take one of the snails, put it in there, and put just a little more of this butter on top. Much better. Much better. Alright, now that we have our butter mixture made, now it's time, let's go ahead and let's prepare our snails. And what I want to do is I want to take a little bit of this butter mixture, I want to put it in the shell, and these shells, by the way, come separately. I want to take one of the snails, put it in there, and put just a little more of this butter on top. Alright. And that is going to give us, that's going to give us our escargot that we want to serve. Oops. Now, one thing I do get asked about when I make things like this, or when I make, dishes like oyster Rockefeller or something like that, where I actually use, half the shell or something, people are always asking me, can you reuse the shell? Absolutely. The only thing you have to make sure is, A, you get out everything that was in there, and B, you make sure that it's extremely sanitary, so you don't want people to get sick. Other than that, go ahead and reuse them. After all, when I order these, you get these snails here in a can, and you have to order the shells separately. They're reused. So the big thing is making sure that everything is clean, clean, clean. All right, there's no sense in boring you with making you watch me do this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'll go ahead and finish these. Alright, here we have our escargot. I'm going to show it here under the detail camera so you can get a much better look at it. Now, a couple of things I like to do with these is sometimes I like to put just a little bit of breadcrumbs on there. Not very much, because you don't want, this crunchy, but you do want a little texture contrast. And so these are breadcrumbs that I actually made. I actually made in an episode where I made sourdough breadcrumbs. So that's where these came from. Now, if you like, you can also take and put just a little cheese on top of these. Now, snails have a very delicate flavor. So you don't want to put anything, that's going to have a huge, sharp taste to it. You want something very mild. In this case, I'm just using mozzarella. And the reason that I'm putting the cheese on is because that's going to brown nicely in the oven. Could you use Havarti or something like that? Absolutely. Whatever your favorite cheese is, use it. Okay, here we are. We now have our escargot ready, and as soon as the oven heats up to 450 degrees, I'm going to put them in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in just long enough to melt the butter, and let it soak in a little bit. Now remember, when snails come, they're canned, they're pre-cooked, so you don't want to burn them in the oven. All you want to do is you want to warm them, and you want the tops to be nice and brown. So that's all we're going to do, is we're going to put them in for a bit, and then we're going to stick them under the broiler, and we're going to let them brown. So let's wait till it heats up. All right, now while the oven's finishing heating up, I want to show you the second way of serving escargot. And sometimes you just don't want to go out and buy shells for them. And that's perfectly fine. This is another way you can make them. And all I'm doing really is I'm taking this butter, parsley, garlic mixture, and I'm putting a little bit of it in the bottom of this tray. Alright, just like such. Now, let's go ahead and put our snail right on top of this. Alright. Now that we have those on, I'm going to put just a little bit more of this butter mixture on top. And the reason I'm doing that is just because, when I put the breadcrumbs and the cheese on there, I want it to stick. Also, when these are under the broiler, I want them to, I want this butter on top to keep them moist. Alright, now that we've got our butter mixture on here, let's go ahead and let's put our breadcrumbs Okay, now these are made. I do want to rinse off my hands a little bit. Okay, now we have the two types ready, one with the shell and one without. Now, one thing, when you serve these, if you serve these as an appetizer, as a party, one thing you have to be careful about is if you serve them without the shell, you have to have something to put them on, all right? Because you can't expect people just to go in, take their little fork, pull it out, and eat it, right out of here. No, they'll want to take and they'll want to put it on a piece of crostini. So what I recommend is you take and make a little bit extra of this, and then you take some crostini, and then you can just take, and put a little bit of that on there, and then take and put your snail on top of that, and it makes an excellent way of serving it. So, now I'm going to put those in, and I'm going to set the timer for probably about 5-6 minutes, something like that. What I want is I want that butter to melt and start, absorbing into those snails. And then I want to take it, I want to put it under the broiler for about another 5 minutes, and I want it to get nice and brown on top. Okay, now, as you can see here, let me move this over a little. As you can see here, these are starting to melt. The butter's melted, the cheese is, starting to melt. So it's a perfect time. Now let's go ahead and let's put it under the broiler, because we really want these. I've gone ahead and put them under the broiler, and I've set the timer for 3 minutes. It may need a little bit longer, it may not, but I sure a lot rather get it before it burns than afterwards. So let's see what it looks like in a couple minutes. Alright, it's been about 3 or 4 minutes under the broiler, and I wouldn't want to go any more than that. These are getting nice and browned. As it is, let me hold it up to the detail camera a little bit more, and that way you can actually see what they look like. Alright, now, here's how you're going to go ahead and you're going to serve them. You're going to serve them either without the shell or with the shell, but either way, first thing you got to do is you've got to let them rest for just a second, because these are going to be hot and you don't want anybody to burn their mouth and have to spit them out on the carpet. So let's give them a couple of minutes, let them cool down a bit, and then we're going to eat them. And that's what it's all for. And believe me, I made these before. They are delicious. Now remember, the shells can be reused, and I've reused them before. I've reused oyster shells before when I made oysters Kilpatrick, oyster Rockefeller, things like this. So you can always reuse them, and I recommend that you do. Just make sure that when you clean them out, you get everything out of the helix. In other words, these are helix snails, and you've got to go down in the shell and you've got to get everything out of there. So make sure that you go ahead and get in there with a good stream of water and get that all out. Then boil them. I would prefer to boil them in salt water. That way you'll make sure nothing's going to really survive in there. And once they're clean like that and they're sanitized, go ahead and put them in a plastic bag after they're dry, and then go ahead and use them the next time. So now, since we go ahead and we've got our snails, they're all ready, what we have here, and I'll show it on the, we have here and I'll show it on the detail camera as well. What we have here is we have a snail fork. And what that does is it goes ahead and it picks up your snails. Such. Now, I recommend that when you take these out and you serve them, I recommend that you have one or two of these as well as some paper plates. You know, that way people can go ahead and they can grab these, they can enjoy them however they want, and they're not going to burn their fingers when they put them on the paper plates. The second thing is I'm showing you here a little small seafood fork. And what I'm doing is I'm going to show you, I'm going to take a still picture of this and I'm going to put it in there. And what this is just something that you can get down into here and you can pull your snail out. That's really good. You can taste the garlic, you can taste the butter, you can taste the snail, you can taste a little bit of the cheese, and it's just absolutely delicious. If you serve this as an appetizer, you've got a winner. Now let's do the other one. And I'm going ahead and I'm putting this on a cracker. And to be real honest, I like Ritz crackers. If you want to put it on crostini, that's fine. You know, whatever cracker you want, as long as it goes well. You may want to take and put a little knife out there in the event somebody wants to take a little of this and put it on your cracker right before you put the snail on. Very tender. You can taste the snail, although it's a very, very subtle flavor. You don't have to worry about offending people with a seafood, taste on this because it doesn't have it. It's very, very good. It's very, very mild. You can taste the butter. You can taste the garlic. You can taste the cheese in here. To me, go for it. It's a winner. You want to serve this to your boss, when you're wanting a raise, go for it. It'll be great. If you want to serve it as an appetizer, go ahead. It's wonderful. In fact, my guess is that this Thanksgiving, this is what I'll be taking as appetizers. And I always try and do something that's extremely fancy, or extremely not so much fancy, but just something that isn't normally done. And this isn't. So, once again, here we go. We've done escargot. I've shown you how. I've shown you where to get this stuff. I've shown you 2 ways. Go for it. Please go ahead and make it. And for heaven's sakes, let me know how it turns out. I really love hearing from my viewers how these things turn out when they make them. Once again, take care. God bless. Remember, my prime directive of food is always one thing, and that's cooking should be fun. I really get a kick out of it. I hope you do too. Thank you again, and we'll see you next episode. Bye for now.